Robschild. Nothing I say is investment advice. Welcome to the show where we view financial markets through crystal ball gazing. JP Morgan once said, millionaires don't need astrologers, but billionaires do. And so we begin. Today is Tuesday, April 30th, 2024. Not a whole lot of interesting economic data to come out besides maybe about cannabis, which we'll talk about later. Later this week, we have, tomorrow on Wednesday, ADP, ISM, manufacturing, and the big one is really the Powell press conference at 2:30. So, Ev, if you've been around markets for a while, you know even the tone of his voice can affect markets during this conference. And so, and most importantly is, will he say anything in regard to future meetings? Is he going to sound more hawkish or more dovish, and that will potentially affect markets. Then on Thursday, we have an initial jobless claims report, factory orders, not the most interesting stuff. And on Friday, the big number I'm looking for this week, probably the biggest number of the week for me, is this U.S. unemployment rate. I've been noting that it's been ticking up. I believe the last report was 3.9. It's been going kind of zigzaggy up and, up higher, down a little bit, up higher, down a little bit, up higher. So will this crack lower, or will we see what's expected? I believe the expected is 3.8%. Will it be much higher or much lower than what people think is going to be? That's a big one for me. On to the charts. This is the S&P 500. I mentioned yesterday that on a closing basis, I saw a wedge bear flag, and I said it is likely that it will break down halfway down. I said specifically halfway down the pattern of the wedge, and that's exactly what happened today. So me and my crystal ball reading on that chart for the daily move was spot on. This gives me confidence that we are indeed still in a bear market, and the more that it goes down, the more confidence I will have that it is going to keep going down. Meanwhile, in higher risk bonds with higher coupons, smaller companies having to pay higher interest costs for their borrowing needs. This fund represents the securities of people lending to these companies, expecting their return. And when this goes down, it means that people are fearing potential defaults on debt or bankruptcies. And I do think it's interesting that although the stock market charts seem a little more confidently bearish, HYT is still sort of coiling up here. We didn't see a clear red candle break or anything. You can barely see this candle actually today. We opened and closed exactly at the same spot here with these wicks going up and down. So again, I expect this to roll over and go down in value. In the VIX, the VIX, the pricing of options contracts, the higher this goes, the more risky markets are. I had been saying since last Monday, I believe April 22nd, that it looked like we were breaking down here. I think Tuesday I said it looked like we were headed to this line, and it still looks like that. We didn't get a huge, even though markets moved down a lot today, the VIX wasn't convinced, and so the gamblers are actually, it's a little mixed here, it looks like. Fear and greed, I mentioned yesterday, fear was just bordering on neutral, and we've moved slightly more into fear today. Next, we have a daily chart of DXY. This represents the value of the dollar versus other world currencies, mostly, and gold. And I mentioned yesterday that this looked like a bull flag, and we actually broke and closed above this channel. It looks like it is... I said it looks bullish here. It looks like it wants to keep going up, and that view is confirmed for now. Moving on to the 30-year Treasury bond yield, I said I'm seeing potentially a head and shoulders developing here being the shoulder. I had the neckline drawn straight. I'm thinking that we might have the neckline actually going up, and actually, a neckline tilted up is a better head and shoulders pattern than one that's actually flat. And so this being the head here, and we've already started this shoulder, will this roll over and go down? I do think so. I think we've topped out in yields here, but that's just me and my crystal ball. Again, if we zoom out on this chart, I see sort of a longer term head and shoulders, that being the shoulder, that being the head, this being potentially the other shoulder before we break much lower in Treasury bond yields, which would send the value of Treasury bonds to go very much higher. If you're interested in trying to invest in this move, the most popular ETF is TLT. I use ZROZ because it has slightly longer duration and it is more sensitive to long duration interest rates. Notably, Bitcoin, this is a daily chart, broke significantly lower today. We had a pretty big drop in this. We had peaked back in March around 73,000. Some people were saying, oh, this is it, we're headed to 100,000, we're headed to 1,000,000, and so far now we're down to 60,000. This is a dangerous vehicle. I believe this is a good time to repeat something that I've said on my channel many times before. Bitcoin is mostly used by people hoping to get more dollars in the future. Any investment that people make in dollars, they're using dollars that they have. They're giving their dollars away for a thing. They're hoping that that thing can give them more dollars than the dollars they paid for that thing in the future. And so, it's like simple, but people really need to remember that the goal is more dollars. You have to find somebody in the future that is willing to purchase that from you for more dollars than what you bought it for. And so you're depending on there being people existing in the future that have the money and want to spend it on the thing that you have. Now that's for capital appreciation. Of course, there are interest-bearing securities as well, including stocks. The leftover money that the company makes, they can give it to the stockholder, including bonds. When you have a bond, there's usually coupon payments that you get paid until the bond is due, and then you can get the entire principal back. And then when rates go down, the value goes up if it has a longer duration. But, at the end of the day, people want more dollars. Whenever anyone's doing any kind of investing activity, the goal is not more Bitcoin, it's not more houses, it's not more gold, it's not more anything. It's more dollars, because dollars are purchasing power and it's the global reserve currency. I can't stress this fact enough to have that be something that is like the primary idea in every investor's mind. You may have seen in headlines today, this is a headline from CNBC, cannabis stocks surge as Biden administration moves to reclassify marijuana. So this means that marijuana, it has been a Schedule 1 on a federal level. It's highly illegal in the same category as meth and heroin, and they're looking at putting it all the way down to a Schedule 3, which is the same level as Tylenol. So it's a big deal in the news. It's this, let's just take a look at the chart real quick. MSOS, a United States cannabis ETF, went up by almost 25% on this news. There's an old Wall Street phrase that goes, buy the rumor, sell the news. This I would count as news. The rumor had been for a while that this was coming, that has it happened yet? I don't believe so. However, the market seems to think this is a done deal here. It seems expected through the news. So yeah, this is a sell the news kind of event. And so yeah, the big question is that are people going to go home and see this in the news and say, "Oh, well, I should buy some cannabis stocks now because obviously, this is an industry that can make lots of money in the future." That might be true. I've talked about this before. One thing that Graham talks about in industries like these is you got to be careful with the fact that you don't know what the supply and demand structure is going to be moving forward. In fact, we may already have too many cannabis companies trying to all get a piece of the pie, and there might not be enough pie slices to even make any profits in the future. I can also add that, this industry has already existed, and just making it a legal industry, people that have been doing this are still going to be doing this, and still, is it going to make cannabis much more popular? I mean, who knows? It is highly notable that the value of this ETF on cannabis back in 2021, when everything was going crazy in valuations, we had gotten up to a value of $55 a share. Now I had actually bought some around when it got to $4 or $5 a share because I thought that was too far of a drop from its height. A 90% decline was just ridiculous. I actually swung trade this twice. I'm not looking to get in here again, even though I do believe there is a high potential for dumb money to start pouring into this market here. Tilray Brands is probably the most well-known company, biggest company in this industry, and they've done nothing but lose money so far. Will they be making money in the future? Yeah, they might be. How much money? I don't know. That's all for today. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Robschild.